Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Lesotho with Teresia DB. I'm Teresia DB and I'm your host for this channel. So on this channel, you already know it, we discuss everything that has to do with Lesotho. We discuss its culture, its history, and anything else that a tourist or anybody who's interested in exploring African countries, and especially this African country, might want to know. If you are new, welcome, and I do hope that you're going to enjoy our content. And if you are not new, welcome back. Remember to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you can be alerted when we make new videos. Otherwise, let's talk history. In the last episode, we talked about the Kwena ancestry and the life and the youth of the founder of the Basotho nation, King Moshoeshoe I. We briefly summarized his life and we ended where we said that although he wanted to be a great leader, he did not quite know how to go about it, and he turned out to use very violent tendencies to get his way. And that is when his parents took him to a great chief, Chief Mohlomi, who then changed his perspective and changed him to be the leader that we know him to be today. And in this episode, we talk about who Chief Mohlomi was and all of the leadership lessons that he expanded upon King Moshoeshoe to make him the leader that we know him to be today. So here's what we know about the life of Chief Mohlomi. He and King Moshoeshoe were actually distant relatives. They shared a common ancestor, Chief Monaheng. Chief Mohlomi was the son of Munyani, who was the son of Monaheng. He lived on the other side of the Caledon River, and during his times, he was one of the most famous men on the high veld. He was gifted, and it is said that he had been so from a very young age. His origin story is that when he was a young man at initiation school, which we discussed as a rite of passage that Basotho young people had to pass through to become young adults, he had a vision wherein the roof of the hut that he was in opened up and he was transported to a very high mountain. There, he met his ancestors long past, and God spoke to him. It is said that he was told to go out and rule in love and to treat his fellow people as his own brothers. And that's exactly what he did. He grew up to be a doctor, a diviner, a rainmaker, and an avid traveler. And it was on his travels that he mostly acquired his wealth. While he traveled, he advised his chiefly hosts on good leadership skills, and he also provided doctoral and seeing services for the people that needed them. In turn, they paid him in cattle, and in those times, cattle were a big sign of wealth, and that was how he grew his wealth. He didn't only keep the cows to himself, but he also used them to marry into the royal families that were hosting him, and that was another way to ensure that his influence stayed, because he was forming alliances through his marriages. But his wealth in cows was not the only thing that made him a legend. Aside from his leadership skills that we will get into, there was also the things that he acquired while traveling. It is said that he traveled as far as Delagwa Bay, where the European people had begun trading with Bantu peoples, and from there he acquired a piece of Portuguese clothing that was one of the first to be seen amongst his people. Secondly, he acquired some of the earliest beads when beads were being used as a form of currency among Southern Africans. Yes, you heard it right. Beads were used as a form of currency, but then this is another thing that we'll get into later. But as you can imagine, this not only made him wealthier, but also made him famous amongst his people and a respected traveler, of course. It was on one of many such travels that he met King Moshoeshoe I, because when he met him, he was actually traveling to a village near Botabote where King Moshoeshoe lived with his father. And so the leadership lessons began. There are a lot of things to be learned from King Moshoeshoe's leadership, and most of these were the influence of Chief Mohlomi. But I do not think that most of these things he was told to do, but rather he learned by example. There were some that he was told to do, and there are some that I think he just learned by example, and we'll see them as we go along the episode. The first of these things is to show up as your best self when you are a leader, to show up with your brain, your body, and your heart in the right place. And this he did through 1. Making sure that his body was healthy by avoiding all kinds of alcohol and spirits. This was a principle that Chief Mohlomi himself followed, and also King Moshoeshoe's father himself, Chief Mohlomi, followed. King Moshoeshoe wanted to appear as his best, sober self when he was ruling over his people and when he was ruling over the whole tribe. He was aware of the adverse effects that alcohol can have on a person, especially a leader, and their behavior and the way that they think. So he wanted to avoid all of that. And this was all reiterated in the law that he made banning alcohol in 1854. And the law reads, Ordinance against the introduction and sale of spirituous liquors in the territory of the Basotus. Whereas the spirituous liquors of the whites were unknown to former generations of our tribe, from Bamunaheng, Matiye, and Mohlomi, and our father, Mokhatshane, now very advanced in age, has never used any other drink than water and milk. And whereas we deem that a good chief and judge cannot claim to be competent to execute his duties if he makes use of anything of an intoxicated nature, and whereas spirituous liquors create quarreling and strife, and pave the way to the destruction of society, for surely the spirituous liquors of the whites are nothing else than fire. It is therefore hereby made known to all that the introduction and sale of said spirituous liquor within Basotho land is henceforth prohibited, and provided any person, whether white or colored, contravene this order, the spirits shall be taken from him and poured out on the crowd, without excuse or indemnification. And this order shall be printed in the Basotho and Dutch languages, and posted up at the places of public meetings and in the villages of the Basotus, given with the advice and concurrence of the great men of our tribe, by us, the chief of the Basotus at Tababosiu, the 8th of November, 1854, Moshoeshoe. And secondly, he ought to have appeared ruling over his people with the right mind and with the right heart. This one he was taught. He was taught by Chief Mohlomi, who told him in one of his famous sayings till today, which said that the law knows no one as a poor man, so you must always be just when handling cases in court. And that's exactly what King Moshoeshoe did. And he always made sure that it was reflected in the way that he adjudicated over cases in the Kgotla. To make sure that his mind was in the right place and he was not biased in any decisions he made, he included his people in the decision making. If there was a case to be decided and there was a perpetrator, everyone in the village would come together and decide on the matter. Everyone would have the chance to question the perpetrator in the way that lawyers today do, present their evidence and present their opinions, and then give them to the king at the end of the day. The final decision would be his, but when he made a decision, it would be clear to his people how he came to that decision, and he also knew that if he made an unfair decision, it would be clear because everyone was involved in the proceedings and would have seen the facts that led to the decision that he was making, and if the facts did not align with the final decision, it would be clear that he made an unfair decision. So by involving his people in the justice process, he made sure that his bias never overcame him and everyone received justice because it was not only his justice to give, but everybody else's. Secondly, he made sure his mind and his heart were in the right place by going into court with a principle: never victimize people accused of witchcraft. And this was something that he was actually told specifically by Chief Mohlomi. You see, in those days, chiefs would use accusations of witchcraft to enrich themselves. If they were feeling threatened or disliked a certain person in the village, they would get someone to accuse that person of witchcraft or would accuse them themselves and then have them expelled from the village or killed and then take their possessions upon themselves. And in Lesotho, it was also actually called hojewa. And obviously, this is not a very good leadership quality because who wants to live under a king knowing that at any point, if they displease the king for any reason whatsoever, they might be accused of witchcraft and then dispossessed? Furthermore, witchcraft cannot be proven in the physical world, so you cannot punish someone so severely because of an act that you cannot be sure even happened. That is probably why Chief Mohlomi told him specifically not to victimize people accused of such witchcraft. It could be used as a wrong way to get rid of people that others disliked, or you could make a very wrong judgment based on events that did not even happen. And that's where we will end it today. But let's remember this leadership lesson. Whenever you want to be a leader, you first have to make sure that your physical, your mind, and your heart are in the right place so that you can be able to rule sober-minded and to get the respect that you need from your people, which is what will get you ahead. When you have your body, your mind, and your heart in the right place, then you need to put in policies that will make sure that you get and expand the following that you already have. And in the next episodes, we will talk about how King Moshoeshoe actually did that. And we will talk about one particular, very controversial policy, which today's scholars have actually described as being slavery. So we'll be talking about that sort of version of slavery, and we'll be talking about how it helped King Moshoeshoe get ahead in his leadership. I hope you liked today's episode, and I hope you found it informative. Please do remember to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you know when we upload our next video. Till next time, see you.